Hi, today I'm going to be talking about historical Hispanic architecture, the way that it has evolved and changed over time, and the things that we see in modern day homes that can be traced back to centuries ago. To start, historically every single culture has a signature look, a way that their homes and businesses and just buildings look that make them different from everybody else. And that oftentimes has to do with the geography. The weather conditions and the materials that are available to the people have everything to do with the way that their homes look. For example, in Mexico, places like Chichen Itza and Tulum have buildings made of limestone, stone, wood, and thatch roofs. Today, we can still see those people's descendants living in homes with thatch roofs. However, starting in the late 15th and into the early 16th century was the Spanish conquest of Mexico. The integration of Spanish and indigenous cultures created a blend that still influences Mexico's identity today. The Spanish conquest would fundamentally change the urban landscape of Mexico, most notably in Mexico City. It was built atop the site of the capital of the Aztec Empire, which, forgive me, I am most definitely going to butcher the name of this, Tenochtitlan. Fingers crossed I got that right. The Spanish would erect new European-style buildings, Mediterranean-inspired buildings, and they would implement a grid system in the layout of their cities that was very different from the more... Jed, come here. Sorry. That was very different from the more naturalistic layouts of the ancient cities. Because of these newly established cities, the indigenous people were forced into these more urban areas, which of course created a lot of tension, but would also contribute to the two cultures over time kind of blending together and creating a more hybrid identity. And then between the 16 and the 1800s, Spaniards began to travel to the Americas, where they brought their now considered classic architectural designs. Because of the similar climate in places like California and the Southwest, they were able to build their homes in the same way they did back in Spain and Mexico. This includes the key elements that we see today, like the roof tiles made of red clay, the walls and floors decorated with terracotta tiling, both of which have come up as a result of the blending of Spanish and indigenous cultures. What most people think of when they are asked to imagine a home in Mexico or the Southwest would be considered a mission-style home. These modern-day houses are heavily inspired by the Mediterranean architectural style that was brought to Mexico in the 18th century by Spanish colonists, and it's characterized by the classic red tile roofs, the arched ceilings, stucco or stone walls, and often vibrant color palettes. Another modern form of Spanish architecture that has these same traditions would be haciendas. Haciendas are more ranch-style homes, typically with only one story that's spread over a very large area and a very large courtyard, usually in the center. And they usually have arched corridors, brick fireplaces, and thick stone walls. Sorry. I'm almost done. These homes were primarily built during the Spanish colonization, and they were used typically for farming, for livestock, and as trade centers. On the higher end of this spectrum, we have things like Spanish villas. These have a lot of these same stylistic choices. They're just far more expensive, far more luxurious, not something that the average person can afford. And these traditional homes in Mexico are the modern representation of the nation's history and its cultural identity. Every little detail has a backstory. And that is something that could be carried from the indigenous people, could be brought from Spanish colonists, or it could be a combination of the both. And it's in our blood to carry on traditions, and architectural styles can be seen as no different than a recipe passed down through generations. For the traditional Mexican home, the spirit to carry on the styles that shaped the country highlight just how much the Mexican people honor their traditions and the history that created them.